No, you can't do that.
Ben's gone. We can actually put with the maps for once. Finally, I just feel left out. You know, like I set out for like 2 best of 3s, and you guys have loads of fun with the map. And it's like, oh, I want to join in.
O's and Born. I am not comfortable with that, but fair enough. All right, you can go with it.
But it just means like Oceania and Born. I don't know. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was
like Jason Bourne.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. Maybe. He knew. His
Probably
underwater
not.
cousin.
Probably not.
In the top left-hand side. The Blue Protoss player has impressed me with some of the matches she's had so far in this event. It is Nina. She had a great series against Future, which she probably should have won. Obviously lost out a Trigger, which is a rough one. And fighting for her life now in this best of 3.
The opponent, spawning right here in the bottom right-hand corner. Definitely not shying away from aggressive strategies usually, so I have to keep an eye out on exactly what he decides to go for. We're looking at the main command center of Dolan.
Yeah,
you know what? Maybe that's the name of the ocean monster, you know, that's flying around in the natural. Maybe it's Jason. Could be. I've been trying to come up with a name for that monster for weeks now, and I haven't come up with anything clever. There you go. There he is.
You haven't come up with anything clever?
Well, I mean, I've heard many good suggestions. I don't think this is the best one, but...
I don't think it's a great one, honestly. I feel like we could do so much more with it.
It's a bit of a stretch, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyhow, let's see. Do you expect any cheese here from Dolan?
Yeah, maybe not cheese per se, but I definitely expect aggression. He is a player that so far, Dolan's run has been 1-2 Trigger, 0-2 Eric, 2-0 Foxer. Didn't get to see the Foxer series, was on the B stream, but the Trigger series was really interesting. He did get pretty cheeky. It was like a Hellbat attack that actually worked against Trigger. So that was actually pretty cool, I guess.
Oh, yeah, that was a sick game, actually.
Yeah, we casted that. It was like day 1 or something, I think.
I think it was the first day of the entire event, and he went for like a Hellbat all-in against Protoss, and we're like, wait, this works? And it turns out, yeah, it actually kind of works.
Yeah.
I don't know how consistently, but it worked in that particular game.
Yeah, so I want to say no, but then I'm reminded that I'm like, so yeah, kind of. I think he's much more of a timing player. Like, I really feel like he will maybe set up like a lot of 2-base attacks here and so on, but yeah, maybe he does just have some weirder builds to mix in as well, so we will see as a few Marines moving about onto the map. Probe of Nina moving around the left-hand side, and so far, everything's fairly normal, right? I mean, obviously the Marine count's getting up a little bit, the command center on the main base of Dolan is on the way up, so he's going to get himself a natural, but very safely. Nothing really out of the ordinary just yet for the early minutes.
There is that probe in the bottom left-hand corner, so we have to keep an eye out on exactly what the plan is. But this isn't a super early probe, right? It's not like we're going to be proxying the second pylon or anything along those lines. Now we're just mostly scouting around to make sure that there's no starports hidden over here in this section of the map. Obviously, that's something we just saw as well in one of the previous games. So Nina just looking around over here, making sure that everything is A-okay. As we do have the starport coming up, but it's inside of the main base, together with everything else. We don't regularly see, I mean, we don't oftentimes see, I guess is a better way to put it, the command center being built in the main base, especially this far away from where it ultimately needs to go. It's a small investment, but it keeps you a lot safer.
Looking for this Hellion, which would be, this Adept, which would be really nice, because we're going for Hellions. I was almost convinced we were about to see a medevac, and maybe not like a proxy Hellion drop, but like just still a Hellion drop. Now, Liberate on the way up, we're going to go to 2 more Hellions again. Okay, Dolan's already being kind of wild and wonderful at the start of this game, number 1.
So normally in my mind, Hellions aren't a great unit in this particular matchup. I mean, they can roast probes, right? But that's usually where their effectiveness ends. Now with an armory, you can turn them into Hellbats. Or is that a particularly great unit, especially against like one of the more normal openers that we oftentimes see from Protoss players? Like say it's a Blink Stalker start, say it's for example a Stargate opener. I mean, that's not happening in this game, but what exactly would those Hellions achieve against that? Is that what Nina is doing? That's also an interesting one. She's opening up what seems to be 2-base Colossus. That's something we used to see back in the day, but these days it's not very common.
It's very risky in a funny way, because it's one of those builds where you're kind of like, okay, 2-base Colossus, that's kind of fine, right? As, whoa, Hellion's going to get in, good force field. But it just doesn't have the mobility, so you're really relying on just the Colossi, and there's a lot of Terran can do to pick you apart there. It's a pretty good defense from Nina. Stalker's got on top of the Liberator quickly. Most of the Hellions are kept out. Oh, 3 Hellions actually back into the natural. If they line up their shots, they've got 1-shot potential. Dolan's not doing it right at all. Oh my goodness. Just stop and fire all out. Oh my god, he still can't do it.
I am a little surprised these Hellions got in the first place, if I'm being honest. Like, now they're gonna get cleaned up, but that sentry's... I mean, I guess it didn't have enough energy, right? But we should have had something here sticking around on the low ground to just body block those units from coming in. Ultimately, it's 8 workers going down in exchange for 6 Hellions, a Reaper, and a Liberator. That's expensive. That is by no means worth it at all. And that immediately now triggers Nina to go across the map. I mean, she was going to go for a Colossus opener. She's going for a Colossus here as well, but she's now also going to test the water, see how it goes.
Yep, she is off and away, so away we go, and don't really blame her, because, I mean, that was a fair amount of, you know, harassing units thrown at Nina by Dolan. As the force field goes down, a couple Marines get picked off, Stalkers taking some shots off those tanks. Another Liberator, but the probe on the 3rd is maybe going to see that. Drops the Nexus down, might just about keep it out of vision, but either way, we've got that Liberator coming up around the top, and Nina and Dolan, well, we'll continue through. Nina continues into that Colossus production, and like I say, it's still going to be very vulnerable with that Colossus play for a little while in my eyes.
Absolutely. Yeah, so now the Stimpak combat shields plus 1 infantry weapons, all of it is coming up right here for Terran. The sort of classic attack, right, that we see very commonly whenever Terrans are going for a standard build. That's usually the type of upgrades we see lined up together, and while they're maybe a little bit mismatched, they should finish up right around the same time. Liberator over here, though, buying quite a bit of time here as well, though, for our Terran player. And keep in mind, this isn't a quick 3rd Nexus right here from Protoss at all, so normally this would be one of those scenarios where Protoss is going to be able to run away with the game economically, but that's not quite the case here. That economy here from Protoss is decent, but it's nothing amazing.
It's actually a great point. You know, the fact that this 3rd is so much later than usual, because, yeah, you know, you usually see all this damage like, well, you know, you've killed 10 probes, but do you not need more? Well, actually, in this case, 10 probes means a whole lot more than usual. And Nina's preserved a pretty good worker advantage over Dolan, and, you know, probably good enough overall. Income has been kind of a little bit pingy towards Dolan when probes pull en masse, but this push right now maybe does have some potential. Again, no charge, no blink. If the 4 tanks can get in position, then they can target fire the Colossi. There is just possible, you know, a potential that these Colossi can never really get kind of properly involved in a fight. So let's see. I mean, Nina's on the map. I feel like if I'm Dolan right here, the force field just went down. Don't siege, just continue upwards. Gonna give it a little bit of time. This is Nina buying time that she needs. She can't let Dolan get into position, and Dolan is gonna let her kind of control the middle of the map, unfortunately.
I do like it, though, that Nina is moving around here. It's always a little bit risky, but you gotta buy whatever time you can, right? So the longer that this game goes on, the more that income advantage will grant the Protoss player a larger army here. So that's ultimately what she's looking for. Blink is just about to finish up, maybe 15 seconds, 20 seconds-ish or so from now. Plus 1, yeah, ground weapons a little bit behind that too. Dolan hasn't started up any additional upgrades. Okay, he's now getting into a spot, though, where those siege tanks are looking mighty scary.
Nina has,
I'm always a little hesitant here whenever they don't siege.
Nina has no idea where this army is. Dolan has worked his way around all the spot units that's been out here. Now going to move up. Force fields go down. Tanks are sieging. What can they do? 4 Colossi. Going to put in a lot of hurt, and I think that's where Dolan really needs to get rid of Colossi, but ain't really happening. 3 of them still firing away, and Dolan's army is taking an absolute beatdown right now. As we are going to see a few more Marauders showing up. Those Colossi still good, and once the tanks are gone, is there anything to kind of really take out the Colossi? Well, the Marauders are going to stem forward, and they are going to close the distance. They are going to get all Colossi, and all of a sudden, Dolan maybe actually has enough to keep going here with Nina out of tech.
Yeah, well, you don't have anything buffering for those Colossi. They just get absolutely melted. And ultimately, that was still, yeah, good right there for the Terran. I mean, when you're trading out your low-tier units for those units that take a hell of a lot longer to produce, that usually works out in favor. Then again, Dolan only just now has started up a 3rd command center. So, in a way, that was like a strange 2-base all-in. I was wondering if you should pull the boys with that particular attack when he first moved across. Yeah, maybe it's. I mean, there's 4 Colossi, so maybe it's not the ideal choice, but that was a very committed push at the very least. Now there's gonna be disruptors as well, unless he can kill this 3rd base as well, which, ooh, okay. Well, that's the siege tank at the very least going down. I still don't love this right here for Dolan.
No, absolutely. It's kind of like he's still got 30 army supply lead though, right? And these Zealots about to have charge just as they die. So, I mean, it really comes down to these disruptors. He's going to die for this. Oh, no, it goes off. It did connect before it got killed. That was a split-second difference. Couple libs gonna siege up. Do we have the stalkers to take those down? Right now, I do not think we do. As the disruptor will reach the siege tank, so it's gonna be a little bit weaker for the next round of attack. I'm just gonna have ourselves the Colossus, the Serral continuing through, and there's a little Bioforce still trying to do what it can, continue to push. Third CC finishing up behind this, so Dolan can continue to get set behind this, but can he actually break through? Nina right now is just about hanging on in there.
She snuck out a fourth Nexus though on the left, and I don't believe that that one has been spotted yet. So despite the fact that the third command center is now done, so is the fourth Nexus, or at the very least those things are all finishing up. That's another siege tank getting destroyed. Liberators here putting in a lot of work though. Dolan really wants to try and win the game with this particular attack. A lot of these bio units are now very low in hit points. That's now the Archons getting underneath as well. Siege tank in the back, just a few hit points away from going down. It's been providing so much damage over the last couple of minutes. This is still on a razor's edge.
This really is on a razor's edge. This has been completely wild as Dolan is just keeping on pushing. Like I say, third CC's ready to transfer, so he's going to have SCVs mining properly again, but I wonder if it just took him too long to get a third base up. Now both tanks go down. This Bioforce is low HP, and the Medivacs are low energy, so altogether, Nina is going to push this back, getting kills as she chases as well. And I think that Nina might have just about done enough as this PVT is looking to turn in her favor.
All right, second robo coming up. We're gonna produce 4 probes here all at once. Dolan has finally, nearly 12 minutes into the game, basically as the main base is running out of resources, especially when you're mining with mules, finally secured a third base. Now we have a Ghost Academy coming up. I mean, that is a Ghost Academy, technically speaking, on 3 bases, but it doesn't really feel like a 3-base Terran economy here, so if we do decide to go heavily into Ghosts, we're gonna have a couple Ghosts, and that's really about it. There's not gonna be a lot of room for other army. This is also a difficult game to read, though, at this point here for Nina. Like, when exactly do you decide to go for a move out? We saw a bit of an overextension with the Colossi around this area of the map not that long ago, and that entire Protoss army got wiped, and yeah, I guess that Nina wants to play this a bit more cautiously. This is not really an army that can roam around the map, but if you look at the amount of units available at this point for the Terran, it's... well, this is about half of it on your screen right now. It's nothing impressive.
Yeah, here's the other half. It's,
yeah.
Sorry, it was a third. There was another third over here.
Alright.
Yeah. No, there's not a lot of stuff. Nina obviously just did as well, just having confidence and kind of being able to chill for first time in a long time. You can see a 5th base coming up, and look, I look at this, I'm like, wow, what an army. I understand it's just 2 Medivacs units, but like, I don't know why I expected it to be something more. Oh, I guess because we're doing.
Whoa! No! The strangest Pokemon to fight in the tall grass, man. Yeah, you shouldn't have triggered the fight.
Pokemon
well,
never learn.
Maybe you should have, because ultimately that now brings back the entire army.
Yep.
Why did that Zealot attack? He could have just lived.
Yeah, he should have just chilled out. But no, this is, yeah, back on track. I think this is one of those scenarios where, like, I look at Dolan's army, and, like, I expected this to be kind of like the split force, right? Before, when he was, like, had a couple Medivacs around, but then he just didn't have that much. Now, a more sizable amount moving forward, but Nina has a lot too. Disruptors will zone. Only issue is that she's coming all from one direction. She is going to go up this ramp. Disruptors will get rid of both the siege tanks. That is very good. Will she continue to chase? Looks like she is feeling it. Continue to go straight on forward. It's an EMP or 2, but all she really needs is to get those Colossi in range, and she's starting to catch up with the Ghosts, so the expensive units are beginning to go down already. It's all adding up right now.
Yeah, I would have loved to see a Prism with this as well in the main base, for example. Something to warp in and distract the Terran from just paying attention at this one fight, because that's usually when those Disruptors really start connecting. Instead, we're just going to go for a full frontal assault right here by Nina, and that's always a little bit risky, right? Like, that's when you're trying to move up that ramp and you're focusing all your attention in one area, and that's where those Liberators and Siege Tanks are amazing, and those Disruptors get nullified. She's already going to go for a Stargate here. We have a Dark Shrine coming up, +2/+2 on the production tab. I mean, she's getting a bit of everything, and I think ultimately it will work out in her favor, but this attack is still certainly a dangerous one.
Oh, absolutely, as you see another Disruptor shot firing through. SCVs getting blasted. And a couple of Liberators still just sitting up overhead. Libs, Tank, Marine Marauder, Ghost, all on the way out. As our units of Nina just continue to head into the center. 7 SCVs haven't been killed. She just needs to find one final fight. Of course, she can't go too quick because the army supply of Dolan is good. It's really about you know, taking a fight and then being able to reinforce behind it. That's what Nina can do. She has 81 workers compared to the 45, now 50 of Dolan.
Yeah, she's also starting up a proper late game transition though. So we have the +1 arrow weapons. I think that's the first time we're seeing that one on the production tab all day, despite the fact that I feel like every single series we've had today featured the Protoss. Okay, maybe not that E-Laser series. I think there may have been a TVT somewhere too, but anyways. Long story short, we haven't seen a lot of SkyToss play here, and Nina is ready to make that transition into it, and I honestly don't mind it. I think it's a good choice here because this game has been so wild. I think she could just attack move forward, but it's really hard to say that as you're playing the game. Like, we have perfect vision and it's still looking a little bit risky, so I don't blame her for making that transition, although it is going to be costly, right? It's going to be a couple minutes until those big heavy hitters are really underway. I mean, she may just have enough here though. Yeah, all of these units are so low.
Yeah, this honestly feels like enough. The only issue is the Liberators, perhaps. There's a few of them all stacked together there. GG. But Dolan's going to say GG. He understands that this one is too far gone, and Nina is going to open with a 1-0 lead. As, yeah, Dolan was very aggressive at first, obviously eventually broke away from his 2-base aggression after all of that initial 1-base, well, not really 1-base, but just opening harassment. And then Nina was kind of just in control, right? Took a while to finally stabilize, but when she did, she was on a 4th base already and just had, you know, everything set to go, basically. So, solid game. A 1-0 lead for Nina. And heading into Game 2 on Alkaini for our second map of this best of 3.
That was a pretty cool game, though. Very back and forth right there in the end. I really thought that the first attack on that ramp down from the natural would have gone a little bit better for Protoss, and then the Marauders just... You know, they use their Stimpaks and suddenly they come blasting through all of those Protoss units and all of those Colossi disappear. With 4 Colossi. I wonder what would have happened though if Dolan did decide to pull his drone, or not his drones, his SCVs in that particular situation, right? Because it is dangerous, but we were already so committed on 2 bases. It kind of felt like it was inevitable that, yeah, if you're committed, you may as well fully go for it, right? Like it felt it felt a little bit risky there.
No, I'm with you. I feel like there's absolutely a lot you could have done in that moment where just send it, you know? Like, don't go half-heartedly because, yeah, eventually you got the 3rd up, which maybe did prolong the game, but the moment the game got prolonged, it wasn't a good scenario for you. Whereas if you just go, like you say, it's a much more winnable situation, perhaps. And also, I mean, you know, maybe Dolan doesn't feel the same way about his own play, but I feel like that's where Dolan's at his best, when he's timing, when he's, you know, doing those. Nina's one of the fiercest competitors when it comes to longer games. She's very good at scrappy games as well, and like kind of having to play like, you know, a longer game out, and that's exactly what she did, for example, against Future a couple of times, and that was really a series where I think Nina should have been able to do maybe even a little bit better than she did in the end. But when you think back to those games, I'm like, man, I really don't want to take on Nina in those kind of games, but that's what Dolan would get into if you push, you fail, and then you try and macro out of it. It's not like you're just even in macro, it's specifically a more scrappy situation, and like I said, I think that's something that Nina's very well versed in, because she's playing at the top of this America scene for so long, and that's kind of the games that we get out of this region so often.
Absolutely. Alrighty, so game number 2 in this best of 3 series. Spotting right here in the bottom left-hand corner, we have none other than Nina. More than happy to play the macro game there, right? We saw the transition towards SkyToss coming up. Wasn't necessary, but yeah, she was down to fight that game for another 20 minutes if she needed to.
Oh yeah, she was not afraid to just play the slower game if necessary. As in the top right, our red Terran player, it is from the Cranky Ducklings, Dolan.
All right. Let's see. We haven't had a discussion about this particular map name.
It's a star.
Because I heard you pronounce it a little differently than I've heard other people pronounce it.
Okay, so it's a very bright star, and it's based off of a Greek name. And it's funny because I think it's either Alkaini or Alcyone, and neither is incorrect. Yeah. Alkaini is specifically the Greek way of saying it, but in English you would say Alcyone. Now, I was all on the Alcyone hype train, but then I heard other casters who are usually pretty adamant, I'm not going to name names, who are usually pretty adamant about how to say things, say Alkaini. And I was like, you know what? If I fight the fight of Alcyone, we're going to be split forever. So maybe if I go Alkaini and they're going to be on Alkaini, maybe everyone will go Alkaini. But now I'm second guessing myself, because ever since I started to say Alkaini, no one has done anything but doubt me. So
Right. Yeah, no, fair enough. No, I'm with you. I mean, in a lot of languages, the C is not pronounced as an S, like usually it's done in English, but as a K instead.
Yeah, I think
it would definitely both be accurate.
Like I say,
do we have to go back to whoever discovered the star, or how do we decide this?
Yeah, like I don't know, man. Like, is it even named after the star? It could have just been one.
It's also a person in Greek mythology. Apparently.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like the star was named after one of the Greek mythology people.
You know what's even more confusing? Apparently, the Dutch version, which is what pops up in my Google search primarily, is spelled with a K rather than with a C.
That's so Dutch, man. Honestly. And yet the other ones they're not signing.
I guess we never know.
Alkyne was the sister who became the mother of Hiereus by Poseidon, the sea god. Honestly, I feel like I'm going to learn so much Greek mythology just from Googling StarCraft map names. 20 years from now...
We won't be familiar with, like, the entire, what is it, the Pantheon? I don't even know if that's the correct mythology. I guess so, but...
Legitimately, we're going to be in, like, a pub quiz, like, 20 years from now, you know. StarCraft lives are behind us. And I'm just going to be like, bam, 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 this like bonus round Greek mythology. We're going to absolutely win. And they're going to be like, how do you know all this?
The final question in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire is who was the goddess Hecate? And we'll be like, bam, necromancy, life, death, StarCraft 2 map. We got all of it.
They're like, wow, you're really good at Greek mythology. It's like, no, I just love my StarCraft
Do you need your lifelines? No, I got this one. Don't worry about it.
StarCraft? Is that a board game? Yeah.
Is it a DIY project where you craft stars? Like, what do you do?
There's going to be 2 cyclones, by the way, on the way out of the factory, so they are going to be coming up, getting those on the way. As we just have ourselves a couple of gates, the Observer coming through for the moment, and the Reapers are just going to go be chased around by the couple of Stalkers.
Good little bit of Cyclone play. This is what we all expected from the new patch, to see a lot of Cyclones, and honestly, it's been a little bit lackluster, right? I mean, we've seen some Cyclone shenanigans, but not quite as much as I think a lot of people were concerned to see. It's been a unit that we see mixed in from time to time, and it can certainly catch the opponent off guard, but it doesn't seem to be the best choice in most of the Terran early games. So now we have Cyclones together with Ravens. Obviously, well, that's a nice scan. Getting that one early. Kind of expensive too, of course, because that scan could have been a mule, but the Raven on top of this with the interference matrix. It's once again that quick Colossus build here from Nina, so she's really doubling down on this one. Maybe she's also concerned that she's going to get cheesed a bunch, or at least a bunch of aggressive timings. So, yeah, just opening up as safely as possible. It ultimately is a bit risky because your economy is just kind of not as great as you ordinarily would have it have.
It's almost like you're meant to have a good timing at some point, but then you're playing Colossi, and so moving across the map is inherently dangerous.
Right.
Second Observer, that's a big deal because there's Disruptors as well. It's a very big deal because as we actually see more factories, straight up actually going to play mech. But to get back to my point about Observers, big deal. Expensive, lots of gas to build an Observer, but also now you're losing them. Do you want to rebuild an Observer because it takes a build time on your Robo? When your Robo is your only real form of tech right now, no, not really. You want to get your splash damage units out now the Robo Bay is done. So losing Observers really sucks because they're meant to give you the safety net that allows this less than mobile army to really deal with aggression and different like fronts of attack from the Terran player. And the reality is now you don't have anywhere near as much vision, and yet you kind of are in a situation where you need to be fairly safe. As this hallucinated Phoenix is going to find all the info. All these factories on 2 bases is absolutely still screaming all into me, though.
Yeah, it's an important scout, because I don't think this is really a scenario where you want to have a lot of Colossi, so just getting the vision here is going to be kind of nice. Instead, Nina decides to drop down a second Robo facility. I'm assuming we're going to go full Immortal production. Yeah, that is indeed what we are firing up here, because... well, if there's one unit that Terran Mech is really weak against, usually it is going to be the Immortal. There are a couple other options as well, which is why we don't generally see Mech very frequently against Protoss. But this, in a way, even with the new patch now being around for, I guess, over a month, maybe a little bit longer than that even. Maybe it's already been 2 months, I don't know. Time is weird in StarCraft life, but... this is relatively unexplored territory. We don't see a lot of Terran Mech against Protoss, and usually that's because Protoss has a lot of good answers against it, but this is one of those scenarios where it's going to be hard to predict exactly what ends up going down.
Yeah, I think the biggest telltale sign is still just the fact 2 bases, right? Like, no third with this, absolutely. We're just going to send it, and then it's a question of if the Protoss player just... I mean, we got to stop being greedy, right? The 4th base is currently unnecessary.
Yeah.
You know, like, you've got to recognize this is 2 bases. Like, we do not need the 4th. We need the money spent on units right now. Additional gateways would have been nice. We're on 4 gates right here. Let's see if it'll be enough. The Disruptor might be a good leading shot as well, of course. I mean, Blink is nice to jump forward as well, but can we afford that many Stalkers? We're on 8 at the moment. 2 mortals at a time,
This
I do
could be
like.
too greedy.
Interesting moments ahead of us.
This is about 1,000 or so resources invested by Nina on things that aren't helpful just yet. The Hellions going in for the wraparound. Interference matrices shut down a couple of those Immortals. And Dolan completely catching this entire army off guard. There's nothing really on the other side of the map dealing damage either. Battery overcharge. I mean, the damage output of this mech army is massive. And Dolan hits the opponent in the face with a Terran mech army and completely shuts down the Protoss. That was a misread and a half right there from Nina. She was prepared to play the longer game. Now, she scouted on the other side of the map. That hallucinated Phoenix saw the amount of factories that were down, and maybe more importantly, the lack of a third command center. So maybe she assumed it was hiding off to the side somewhere. Maybe she just had a bit of a misread there, and she very quickly glanced over at it and just misinterpreted it. That happens in a game of StarCraft, but it kind of felt to me like she had the information that she needed to counter that force, and instead she's like, yeah, I'm going to get all of this. I'm going to build all of this infrastructure. And that is not what she needed. I mean, it would have been great if the Terran decided to delay it by another couple minutes, because then she would have had use for all of that infrastructure that she built and all of those upgrades she was researching. But ultimately, she just needed more units here and less structures.
I absolutely must, in my eyes, just be a situation of, like, she thought she saw a third base. Like, you know when you, like, convince yourself, it's like, oh, I just scouted, I just saw a bunch of factories, mech, probably 3 bases, let's go. Right, you know, let's get my 4th base up. I'm gonna out macro this thing so hard. I'm gonna make mech look so silly because like you can't stop me taking bases. I can only imagine it's that, because nothing else really makes sense. Because otherwise, you just scouted a 2 base all in, macroed up, and not even that, moved onto the map, right? With an army that isn't exact. It's not like it has blink that can be like, haha, you know, attack and then blink back. Like the Immortals, the Disruptor were up in the front. Like you can't do that. And she saw everything that was there. She knew there was a Raven. It was honestly a very bad set of choices. And just led to instantly losing the game. And like I say, I can only imagine that she thought it was just very light pressure instead. And like you say, had a complete misread, which is just incredible because she had the complete scout.
All right, mistakes were made right here. Our Protoss player in the bottom right-hand corner of our final game in his best of 3. It's the map Golden Aura. She is Nina.
Up against the red Terran top left from the cranky Duckland. Some of his timings are terrifying. It is Dolan. An elimination match, remember, so this map eliminates 1 player from the competition.
Very cool build right there by Dolan, but I'm certainly with you. I wonder what that game would have looked like if Nina just decided to skip the 4th Nexus, cut a bunch of probes, and just make a whole lot of army. I mean, that force, that Terran mech army is still gonna hit like a truck. It would still be very difficult to stop. But yeah, oftentimes what you do in a game of StarCraft is you glance at the scouting information for just a little bit. Maybe even look at the minimap, right? You try to judge the size of the square, and you're like, huh, that red square there, it has to be a command center. And it turns out it may have been an additional factory or something like that. But yeah, unfortunate game right there for Nina. Ultimately, though, that means that for us, we're going to get a game number 3, and that's nice.
Well handled by Dolan, I think, as well, though. Like, I mean, I feel like we've been very critical of Nina on that one. But he did the cool things as well, like using the Hellions to block those units in, hit the matrices where he needed to, continue to matrix the units after. So obviously worth mentioning that he took the best, you know, he did absolutely everything he needed to do as well, and he really just made most of the opportunity. Just Nina did make it probably a bit easier than it was going to be otherwise. So Dolan,
even without the 4th though, I think I would have still hit like an absolute truck, because that was a massive army. Those SCVs joining in.
No, absolutely, it would have done. I almost wonder if like robo production is like the best way, because it does feel as though like if you have blink, maybe you can slow it down a bit, or I don't know what the best option
she
is.
Had
you don't see it a lot.
as well. Maybe more disruptors would have also been very helpful there. I think she ultimately was going to add on more, but yeah. Anyways, we'll have to see that build explored a little bit more. Wouldn't be surprised if a bunch of Terran players are inspired by that build, and they're gonna mix it in against their games against pros too.
But I think we'll see a bunch of it, because I'm pretty sure it was a Gumiho-esque build from GSL. I'm not sure if it was exactly the same, but the same sort of vibe to it. So it might be the sort of thing.
It looks like a Gumi build for sure.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing that we might see a little bit more of in the coming days and the next week or so, when people, really get to look through the replays and not have to play a game, the day after straight away. Obviously, Dolan got in there quickly, figured it out, and like I said, not sure if it was exactly similar, but it had very similar vibes. So if these kind of builds become popular, it's just another terrifying option that Terran players have when it comes to TVP, which is not great for Protoss players who seemingly still struggle in the early stages of this matchup with so much that can happen.
Nina decides to play it a little bit differently here this time around. So the very popular Twilight Council start, rather than that 2-base or robo shenanigans, we're going to be going into the Blink. We'll have to see how many gateways she decides to produce. Anywhere between 2 and 4 seems to be the go-to right now. I mean, obviously, the more macro heavy, the less gateways you usually produce. So far, she seems to be fond of playing that more defensive style, and I do think, yeah, that's going to be a robo facility over here as well. Here's the 3 Reaper showing up, though, together with the Hellions, and this is something that, well, can certainly deal a bunch of damage. 2 probes go down. Can we target a couple more?
Trying to just get into the main base of the Reapers, which I don't hate, because now all these Stalkers have to spend some time chasing. I think you probably get more out of this than trying to go on the low ground. Obviously, these units will all go down, but 6 probes is absolutely not a bad start. Last Reaper will fall. I think I kind of like that out of Dolan.
Lovely work right here by Dolan. Bringing different builds in every game. Once again, we're going for the interference matrix. I mean, the interference matrix in the previous game was the absolute key, right? Disabling those immortals was absolutely massive. So I really like to see it. These days with that new upgrade, or with the new patch, you need to get that new upgrade. So it's something that is a little bit more costly, but certainly still something the Terran players can mix in. I wonder if he's going to go for the same build twice in a row. I mean, we'll have to see additional factories pop down here in just a moment. We are going to go up to 4 gas already. There's the Robo Bay once again, by the way, on 2 bases here for Nina, together with Blink. I'm not in love with this build. There's a second Raven. I think we are going to see a drop of additional factories shortly.
Maybe he just likes it. Maybe he says, hey, you didn't really respond well in the first game. I did this, obviously game 2. Let's do it again. Let's see what you can do. But obviously this time there is Blink from Nina. I think Blink is a way better place to be in, because even just moving across the map then as the mecha is so much harder. There are the extra factories going down, so...
There's the scout, though. So she sees this coming in from a mile away right now. Decides to move back upon seeing that Raven, or the Raven knowing that there's likely going to be a Raven somewhere. You gotta be careful.
Yeah,
it's important here to note that there is no third CC, and I think she can already deduce that just by seeing the timing here of these factories.
Yeah, you actually remind me, obviously the observers were lost last game as well, so great job by Dolan there, because by denying both the observers, the hallucinated scout did see it, but it was still a later scout as well, so it also increased the chance of success. This time around, I do think I like things just a lot more for Nina. It feels like everything is much more going in her favor, as we will obviously very soon have this push across the map if the last game is anything to go by.
Here are the Stalkers, though. So the Stalkers obviously don't really have a whole lot of contest at this point in the game. They can poke over here and just deal a bit of damage. Getting a supply depot is a nice start for sure. If she can get any sort of cyclones, there we go. One going down, second one going down. Okay, this is lovely here.
Yeah, and double auto turret
on the Ravens.
Yeah,
that's massive.
Yeah, this is absolutely huge, and already off to a great start. The Raven energy, like you said last time, was such a key to making that attack work as well. Especially if it was to be any closer, the Ravens were going to be a huge part of it. The Observer will go down, so we lose a little bit of potential, although we will get the Siege Tank. One of the Ravens taking shots too. Dolan is just taking hits, and Nina is absolutely punishing this build for, where it is weak, which is right now, as you can see, just at this stage of the game. It is weak to Blink Stalkers. There's nothing good to push them back apart from a tank, but there's only so much ground a tank can cover. Then you lose one tank, so it takes a bit longer. Maybe now we're better set up. Maybe this is the end, but we've already done so much to slow down the numbers building here.
On the back of this, Nina is bringing the Disruptors across the map too. I mean, that one siege tank ended up going down, so now we're going to be able to almost get the kill right there on that other one too. Okay, she wanted to jump that tank and try to finish it off, but the SCV is coming in from the Embrace right over there. This is about the time that Dolan started moving last game, right? Like, we're getting to the point at least where it's about time we need to start going. The blue flame upgrade is going to finish up momentarily. Hellions are still kind of scary though, but yeah, that's where those disruptors are just so nice, forcing the Terran here to disengage.
Just such a different style from Nina, right? More disruptors, charge,
Absolutely.
tons of gateways, no fourth base. We'll now get the second robot up. Clearly just understanding much better what the situation here is. Completely just adapting from game 2 to game 3, and I think that's always one of the great signs, as the couple Hellions go down, one of the great signs of a very strong player, right? Being able to adapt and pick up and fix things during a series, because it means that you can stop someone from just picking your weakness and then just completely punishing it, right? So, yeah, that's why best of 3 is so important, and in this case, it's absolutely going to be giving Nina a chance to show that, yeah, she can adapt and she can deal with this kind of stuff. She just needed a little bit of alteration time.
Absolutely. These disruptors are putting in a bunch of work. Obviously, Nina can't forget about the disruptors. That would be kind of sloppy, but she is slowing down this attack very effectively. We are going to force the recall. One of the Ravens? No, none of the Ravens end up going down. She wanted to get both, and then ultimately we got none. SCV is quickly jumping in for the repair, so this attack from Dolan is still going to be scary. There's 2 more disruptors on the production tab, 4 available, 12 stalkers. This is not that scary of a Protoss army either. I think this will still be enough here for Nina, but it's going to be a lot closer than I thought it was going to be.
She has 7 gates though, so, and she has charge as well, so if she wants to just warp in like a lot of zealots, and she has a lot of money right now, she just wants to do that, then that would be kind of fine as well. The Liberator finally going down there, lost a lot of Stalkers trying to move through, and she is going to keep building Stalkers. Right now I feel like Stalkers are almost not what you want. I feel like right now is actually when you do want the Zealots to close the gap, jump on those tanks, maybe take a couple of the shots as the remaining Stalkers do blink in. So I'm not loving what she's building on the follow-up here.
Oh, there's a big... Okay, well, I thought it was going to be even bigger than that, but... Oh, those Purification Novas are killer. Okay, that's what you're looking for here as the Protoss player, dealing so much damage here to these armies. There's one of the Ravens going down as well, and that is quite costly. I mean, we did get an interference matrix off, but there's so many of those disruptors out. Still though, Nexus ends up falling here. Third command center is about to finish up on the other side of the map. Dolan did bring SCVs, but not really that many that he can't play the macro game on the back of these.
Couple more tanks going down. These disruptors have obviously just had time to fire so many shots.
Oh.
There's just going to be, you know, Zealots and Immortals coming through. Going to just absolutely clean this up. And that is going to be Nina pushing this back and having a great time. And now, obviously, with the 2 base all-in aspect of this, this is not looking great for Dolan, who sets up an immediate wall, has got a third, but, yeah, is not in pretty situation at all.
Gold base, by the way, coming up as well for Nina right now. She decides to go for the base all the way in the bottom left-hand corner, so that's kind of nice, because this is a slow-moving Terran army. I wonder if there was an opportunity for Dolan to just kill that Nexus and then return back home? Because I do think he overstayed his welcome there. There were a lot of units ready to reinforce it, but obviously it's a slow-moving army. It's not really something that you can effectively use. Liberator over here, though, in the main base, trying to put in some work. A couple probes end up going down, but that's not really quite ideal. And now suddenly, I mean, yeah, you can't really be killed, but you're also on 2 bases at the 11-minute mark. This is the point in the game where the main and the natural are going to start running low on money. This base is becoming do or die right now.
Love the blow up on the depots, just going to guarantee those going down, and it just opens the door in case you do want to run into the natural. Third base is like, I'm not sure about being over here, you know, and starts to turn back around, so don't think that's a wrong call either. Nina at this stage obviously get that gold base up and running, she's going to have a good economy, and with that eco can start putting herself into a nice position.
Interference matrix over here, shutting down at least one of the disruptors, and it will get killed. Double prism coming up as well, by the way, but Nina now mining the gold base in the bottom left-hand corner of the map, and that is gonna provide a ton of additional income, and there's really nothing that Dolan can do about it. I mean, he could send a Liberator over there, but he doesn't even know that it's up.
Nope. Doesn't know it at all. There's a couple more depots coming to the front. Stalkers and Immortal pressing forward. We are just going to send it. It seems like Nina going to push in aggressively. She just needs to really break through that little line of tanks, and she's so close to killing so many of them. Oh my goodness. That
Immortal man can just pick them off one at a time.
Ooh, all the triple kills with the disruptor. I guess. Yeah, that works too. Nina is looking to send herself to the final match of the Americas regions. Obviously, this was a 1-2 match, so loser goes out. In the end, it looks as though it's going to be Nina to stay alive. Dolan will be eliminated here today, unfortunately. As SCVs are pulling, we are playing some dangerous disruptor games.